Yes, and looking forward to talking about our work at Agraria. So we are here to celebrate this man, Arthur Morgan, and we heard a lot about his various ventures yesterday. This morning, we're going to be focused on his interest in the small community, which of course is what prompted him to found Community Solutions, then Community Service, in 1940. And in 1942, he published the book, The Small Community, The Foundation of Democratic Life. And as part of the preface to that book, he wrote, "The preservation and perfecting of the small community is one of the greatest issues facing our time." He also published this Community of the Future in 1957. So why, this is, 60 years ago, 80 years ago, why is it that we are thinking about Arthur Morgan today? Well, in 2017, The Atlantic thought Arthur Morgan's work was important enough to actually publish a full-scale journal article about his work and how much it mattered in our current state. And that was in 2017, pre-pandemic and pre the collapse of many of our local economies. I joined Community Solutions in 2014, and one of the first projects I was able to engage in collaboration with Don Hollister, and I'm sorry John Morgan's not on the call, but John Morgan was also a big help in this and other projects, putting together this retrospective of the organization. And I did it because it was our 75th anniversary, but for me, it was a real opportunity to learn about Arthur Morgan. I didn't really know that much about him when I joined the organization, but we only have a few copies left of this magazine, but we do have it online if you're interested. One of the things that I appreciated about this was the opportunity, again, to read about Morgan and to read Morgan's work. So we did put the philosophy of community in this magazine, and I wanted to read a quote from that. "The world today, or to a very large degree," Arthur Morgan wrote, "the failures of our lives are due not so much to the inherent limitations of human nature or human mastery of the physical world as to the poor visions or patterns of life which we live by. The world today is showing vast capacity to develop and organize its resources and to indoctrinate people with political and social purposes, yet how distorted or primitive are the dreams or patterns of life to which these vast efforts are committed." Sounds very familiar to me. "The chief limitations of humanity," he goes on to say, "are in its visions, not in the power of great achievement in realizing them." So I wanted to start with that because at the end of this presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the bigger visions that we have here at Agraria. So this is a little bit of the history of Community Solutions. This is in the centerpiece of the magazine. And you'll notice a few of these people are here today, Marianne McQueen and Don Hollister. We'll also be learning about intentional community from Laird Schaub, and then also Land Trust from Emily Seibel. So I won't go too much into them, but you can see from this timeline that it's been a very active organization, both in founding of other organizations and in conferences. We've had over 100 conferences, as well as books and magazines published and films. A couple threads that are going to come through later, so I wanted to bring them up. One is about the importance of Yellow Springs to the organization. This poem, A Shared Adventure, is in the 75th. That's by Arthur Morgan, and it's about the importance of Yellow Springs as both a model for what could happen elsewhere, and then also a place that Community Solutions and the Morgan family could contribute their ideas. The other thread I wanted to point out, and this is by Don Hollister, and I I think it's an amazing list of questions, community assessment questions that was published, I think, in 2003. And to me, this is sort of the heart of what our questions are as we look at the importance of community, how to rebuild community, and how to assess where we are. I got to know Community Solutions when Pat Murphy and Faith Morgan were running it. This is a picture of Pat, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago. He was hoping to be able to present at this conference, and I'm very sorry that he isn't here. I came to a peak oil conference at Antioch in 2007, and it really transformed my sense of my own professional life and the broad-based network that was in the nation that I really did not know of. Pat and Faith were heads of Community Solutions, I think from 2003 to 2014. And this is one of the major achievements of Pat's, this book, Plan C, which he published in 2008. Also, we all know, I think, of the power of community, which still, it was produced or published in 2006, but we are still getting inquiries about the film, and a lot of people know Community Solutions because of this important film about Cuba's transition to organic agriculture following the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's really an amazing film. Another film that was produced by the organization under Pat and Faith's tenure is A Passive House Revolution, published in 2013. I'm happy to say, by the way, that many of the people who worked with Community Solutions then still do. Megan Bachman recently rejoined us as our assistant director and will be the director when I retire in a few years. So really excited to have her back. Gina Gunderklein is also coming back to work with us, and Eric Johnson there on the left, who's the film editor for the two films, is also back working with us as a volunteer. Another important thread and kind of relocalization for us is our partnership with Antioch College. Up in the upper right-hand corner was a reception when we moved into offices at Sontag Fells in 2016. And I'm happy to report that we are also going to be relocating some of our staff to Antioch because we have outgrown the offices at Agraria, so we are going to be moving into the Kettering building, I hope by the end of the year at Antioch. So we're really looking forward to that. So Agraria, as we talked about yesterday, we purchased in 2017. It was really an enormous leap for the organization. We really did not have the money in the bank to buy it. When I bid, I think we paid over 700,000, and I would be ashamed to admit how little we had in our bank at the time that I bid. But luckily, all kinds of people came through to help us. These are the founding members of Agraria. We were able to honor them at an in-person gathering, I think in 2019. This was our annual meeting in the barn. So Agraria is truly, truly a community-based organization. We had so many people at the beginning helping us, and then certainly carrying us through a couple of difficult years when we first started out. All right, so now just a little bit about our current work. We talk about our major foci as conservation, education, research, and support of the local food system. I'm just going to go through a few slides that show how this manifests today. Conservation, I talked yesterday about the restoration of Jacoby Creek, which is the largest activity that we have going on actually this year, 60 acres of remeandered creek. But we have a lot of other restoration and conservation going on, a lot of soil regeneration, which was the point of buying Agraria, was to demonstrate regenerative practices specifically around soil regeneration. We've also transitioned about 80 acres of our land to organic planting, organic certification. We have 80 acres in conservation with Tecumseh Land Trust, and we also have a number of perennial and permaculture plantings and gardens. We do a lot of education. It's the thing, it's what a lot of the local and regional people know us for, is our educational programs. For youth education, we have a lot of K-12 partnerships within Yellow Springs and the broader Dayton and Springfield community. We also do after-school programming. This fall, we have an Eco Growers, a new Eco Growers program, it's full, and it's really fun to see kids out in the garden after school learning about soil regeneration and growing. We also do a number of summer camps and winter camps. On the adult end, we have skill sharing classes. We had a seed school last year with Beth Bridgman, and we are doing a grain school with her next summer. And that Beth, of course, is a co-op professor at Antioch and one of our best partners at Antioch. One of the really interesting things I mentioned yesterday about how putting conferences online really expanded our reach last year. The other very interesting thing for us was that we did a series of skill shares with fiber artists online and last fall, and they had up to 80 people on these online calls, and they came from England and Australia and Northern Europe. It was really pretty exciting to see the kind of people that showed up for these skill sharing classes and were in conversation about the different work that they had done. So it was really, I think, opened our eyes into the extent of our possible reach through online learning. We also have farmer to farmer learning. You can see some folks from our Regenerative Fellows program helping to put up a hoop house on Houston Road. And through the Regenerative Fellows program, we're also doing skill shares with each of the people who did the program, actually teaching classes over the next year. We have a number of college and university partnerships. We host interns from 7 regional universities, including Antioch, Miller, and co-op programs. We also have research and curricular partnerships. This group of students is actually from Maharishi University in Iowa. They came to I think it was our 2017 conference, or no, must have been 2018 conference. So it was really great to have them here. We also have a number of research projects going on and many more in the works. We have bee and insect research with faculty from Wright State and from Central State University. Central State is our biggest research partner. We have a comprehensive MOU with them. We're doing sweet potato research, which is basically to explore the kind of potatoes that will do well in our area in an era of the shift of growing seasons. We also have mushroom plots. We're working with a local partner on a biochar research project and also plan to do compost research. We also have many gatherings. Yesterday, I talked about our conferences, which are of course, our biggest gatherings. We also do workshops in our barn, as you see in the left-hand side, and then we often host book groups with the surrounding community. And then food system support is our 4th focus area, which is really growing rapidly. I spoke yesterday about Melrose Acres, the site that we were able to purchase in Springfield with a USDA grant last year. We also have the Regenerative Fellows Project, which we ran as a pilot project. This woman, Tiffany, actually farms flowers at Melrose Acres, and she's also one of our Regenerative Fellows. We are looking for funding for the next couple years of our Fellows Project. We also do food sharing. We donate, at this point, pretty much all the food that we grow in Agraria gets donated to communities in Yellow Springs and Springfield. And we also support the Yellow Springs and Springfield markets, farmers markets. these are some things that we have in the works, visions to come. We are planning to do rotational grazing, which is a key way to build soil with sheep. Starting next summer, we got a grant from Equip to do some fencing in one of our fields. So that's going to be done this fall. In the middle, you see the compost, a picture of compost. We did get a grant of about $100,000 from the Ohio EPA to do a compost research and education center, which we hope to open up next summer. In terms of the food system, we already are doing things, but we're actually in the running, and we've in conversation now with the USDA about a new $200,000 grant to do an institutional food purchasing plan for the region. And then in the lower left, you see our barn, which of course is not a new vision, but we continue to update the barn and have visions of it really being updated with electric and welcome center in the bottom to meet our bike path. And the bike path, of course, is another one of our visions, which we hope happens over the next year. And this bike path would lead directly from the back of our barn to East Enon Road by the high school, which would be a really great way for students to come here. So these are our bigger visions as we move toward the future. And we are, some of them we already have kind of in embryo, but another big grant that we are working on is to build out the Black Farming Network, which is a result of the conferences. I spoke yesterday about our first conference that just really was extraordinary to us, the amount of people that came and the conversations that were developed. We followed up with this community land conference this year. This year we had 1,700 people sign up. So it's definitely an interest of a lot of people. We also have done the regenerative training program, but we have in Blueprint stage is a policy fellows program to essentially take some of the Black farmers that we're working with and have a policy leadership program in collaboration with the Nature Conservancy and with the Farm Bureau, because one of the challenges of moving from conventional farming is that most of the soil working groups and agriculture working groups on both a state and federal level primarily are conventional farmers. There's not a lot of diversity in the working groups. So the goal is to start to develop leaders in these programs who are from under-resourced and regenerative focused farmers. We are also working with our farmers on development of a farming cooperative. The Big Map Out was one of our signature programs during COVID. It enabled kids, you see them in the barn with some of their maps over the COVID time when Yellow Springs kids were studying at home. We developed a Big Map Out program in collaboration with Sada Amin from the Yellow Springs schools, and children were encouraged to go out and map their backyards or their front yards. And that was the start of the Big Map Out. It was an awesome program, but the vision is this year we're actually moving it into the middle school years, but the goal is to have it go from K to 12. And one of the reasons I put Dawn's awesome community assessment questions in is that that's the kind of thing that high schoolers could be working on, thinking about what are the realities of their neighborhood, how likely is it that people can walk to a grocery store, or how many trees would you have in your neighborhood? So just bringing the focus of young people on what's actually happening within their neighborhoods is a great way for students to learn about community resilience and regeneration. Another of our bigger visions is the development of a bioregional regeneration network. And we have pieces of this again in embryo with our local food system development and coordinated education with some of our educational partners around bioregional regeneration. And we talked a little bit yesterday about bioregions as being really a very, it's probably the kind of term that Arthur Morgan would have been speaking about had it been a term when he was writing and thinking, as well. Regeneration also would have been. Also, as part of the vision of the network are new economic initiatives, and of course, soil and biodiversity regeneration. This gives you a sense of a little bit of what bioregional regeneration looks like on the left-hand side. These are articles written by a guy named Daniel Wall, who's really one of the primary thinkers about bioregionalism. He teaches, or he did teach at the Findhorn Center, as well as Schumacher College. But this idea of local place, local culture, circular economies, those are all bioregional concepts. And so our goal also, and we actually have a visioning session scheduled next spring with a partner from the Land Institute who also taught at Schumacher College in England, to do a master's in bioregional regeneration with a limited residency program in Yellow Springs, and then courses, as you see, in economic, ecological, and community regeneration. And the good thing about a limited residency, where you're, for example, gathered for a couple weeks or 3 weeks once a year or twice a year, here is that then the courses are taught online, which means that you can engage with people like Daniel Wall, whom we hope will teach with us, by folks around and other folks around the planet.